Welcome everyone to the final round of the Tepe Sigeman Co tournament. On your screen is the 14-year-old super talent from Turkey, Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus. Not only is he the youngest to reach 2700 ELO in this tournament, he's been unbeaten. He's on 4 points out of 6, half a point behind Arjun Erigaisi, tied with Magnus Carlsen. And if he manages to win today, he might be fighting for the top spot. But what a tough game he has on his hands. An inspired Magnus Carlsen who wants to win. By the way, Peter Doggers, the well-known journalist, asks Yagiz Kaan to put his bottle on the side so that it doesn't come in the pictures. We have Jeroen Vandenberg, the tournament director of Tata Steel in Vaikanze, who makes the first move. Is it knight to c3? It's called the Dunst opening, and Jeroen knows that Magnus never going to play that, so puts it back on b1. Magnus must win if he wants to win this tournament, and he has the white pieces. He's trailing Arjun Erigaisi by half a point. Let's see how the game goes. And Arjun is playing Andy Woodward. So Magnus will keep his eye on that game. He plays pawn to d4. But more than anything else, apart from the tournament situation, what is incredible is this battle of generations. The GOAT of chess, as Magnus is called, is taking on someone who's very likely to become the GOAT of chess in the future. It does remind us of the first battle that Magnus had with Garry Kasparov. Something on those lines. Knight to f3, played by Magnus, and pawn to c5, played by Yagiz. Magnus can take the pawn on c5, but he decides to play pawn to c4. We have d takes c4 taken, and that's kind of the queen's gambit accepted. Magnus gets up, takes off his jacket, puts it on the chair, and now pawn to e4 is what he plays. The thing is, you can play d5 and go into sharp positions, but I think Magnus has understood that his best chance against Yagiz remains in the endgame. So he takes with the queen here, and he wants to play a queenless middle game, or you can say an end game. Queen takes queen, and you take back with the knight here. Knight takes d4. Bishop goes to d7. Yagiz is well prepared here. He wants to prepare knight c6 so that takes can happen with the bishop. Magnus chops off the pawn. Knight comes out to c6. Yagiz is blitzing out his moves, which means he's still very much in his preparation. Bishop e3. You take on d4, bishop d4. Magnus is kind of playing for those minute edges. It's kind of risky, right, in such positions, because a small slip and the game ends in a draw. Pawn to f3. White is banking on that small space edge that he has, apart from the fact that his pieces are more active. Yagiz goes knight e7. He's going knight c6. Magnus brings his king to f2, getting his rooks connected soon. Knight comes out to c6, attacking the bishop. The bishop drops back to e3, not allowing bishop c5. Rook comes to c8. Logical move, threatening knight e5 to put pressure here. And I guess Magnus should play knight d2. And that's exactly what he does. So that if knight e5, you can move the bishop back and you have the c4 square controlled. Question is, what do you do with this bishop? Do you go bishop b4? He first plays knight to e5. And Magnus comes back bishop e2. The small edge persists. The battle is getting exciting. Yagiz goes bishop c5. Aha. He trades the bishops. A good move. Bishop takes c5. Rook takes c5. And now rook c1. Imagine if the king was on e7 at this point, then the black rook would have come to c8 and everything would have equalized. But just this fact that Magnus has an extra tempo, he's ready to enter in with rook c7 perhaps. So knight goes back to c6. King e7 was also possible, but knight c6 played. And now Magnus goes e5, a move that could be difficult to understand. He goes king e7. Now think about it. If you took here, then rook c7, Bishop c6, check, and you lose the rook. So king e7, f4, rook goes to c8, and now Magnus plays a3. So he has gotten a small edge because of these pawns and ready to put his bishop on f3. f6, breaking the structure, trying to not let Magnus keep a weakness on e5. E takes f6, taken. And g takes f6 has been taken as well. We have rook to c3. Now the rook can go to b3 but also can go to h3, attacking this lone pawn on h7. Magnus chops off the rook. The prop bishop takes. The problem was if you had gone rook h3, then rook c2, and it was already getting a bit worrisome here. So Magnus takes and plays bishop d3 and says, okay, let's grind in this endgame now. Yaz plays the best move, h6. Okay, it's a very tough endgame against Magnus. Actually, it's super tough, knight c6, but Yaz is known to hold difficult endgames. Remember his queen endgame against Nodirbek from Grand Swiss, where he played close to 150 moves to hold it. So he's here for the long grind. Pawn to g4, Magnus starts expanding on the king side. e5, opening up the bishop, and Magnus plays h3. He's like, if you want to take it, I'll take with the king. Yaz goes king to d6, improving the position of his king, and knight to d2. The knight can come to c4, knight can go to e4, pawn takes, king takes on f4, and knight e5 quickly played. Yaz has 9 minutes on the clock, Magnus has 28 minutes. I don't think time should become an issue. Ooh, bishop f5. If you were to take here, king f5, and suddenly this pawn is weak, the knight is coming in. So Yaz cleverly avoids the trade, and the bishop goes back to c2. Bishop g2. So what Magnus's main approach in such endgames and why he's so good is that he constantly will keep asking Yaz some questions. Like here, he played bishop f5. Yaz didn't have to take it. He moved the bishop. And it's very likely that a good player can answer 9 questions. But then the 10th question, Magnus knows that someone can falter. That's what he's playing for here. h4 played. King goes back to e7. You can already see Yaz getting a bit fidgety, excited. He's under time pressure. He's known to do that. Bishop goes to h3. Now attacking the g4 pawn. Bishop comes to f5. And you have to go back bg2. Again, keeping control here, Yaz. Knight goes to e4. Okay, you can give a check and come back. But it's also tempting to take this knight. He takes it. Because when you are under time pressure, you want to clarify things. Bishop takes e4. Now we have a real imbalance. Bishop versus knight. Knight goes back to f7. A very good move, because if you go king f5, I have knight d6 check with a fork. So bishop d5 played by Magnus. He's reached move 40. Yaz also plays knight d6. He's reached move 40 as well. 30 extra minutes. The position is even. Will Magnus be able to grind out Yaz in this endgame? Well, we'll learn from this. Firstly, 2 pawns slightly weak. Magnus plays a4. Isn't it said that you mustn't put the pawns on the same color as the bishop? Can you not play a5 here as Yaz? He doesn't play it. He plays king d7. I'm a bit surprised here. I mean, a5 should have been playable. b4 now. Magnus says, I'll take even more space. Okay. Maybe a5 now could be an idea. But then take, and somehow the king gets this route, which maybe Yaz doesn't want to give. So he goes knight c8. He's trying to defend it a bit passively. King e4. Magnus goes with his king. You can see that Magnus is enjoying himself. He knows these endgames at the back of his hand. You know, he's so good at it. While Yaz is figuring it out on the board, king d4 played. If you take here, king d5 is a winning king and pawn endgame. So again, a question to Yaz. And you can see the time. Yaz down to 7 minutes. f5 played. If you take knight f5, black is fine. h4 would hang. But g5, getting a passer. And this looks already dangerous. H G. Okay, G6 is not coming because knight is there. So king D6 makes a lot of sense. He plays it. I guess you want to play bishop F7 here to push. But Magnus goes bishop B7. Okay, very interesting. I mean, the move is really cool. If you go here, I can simply take and win. So knight G6. And now king C4. So in a way, you can see the bishop is a long range piece. It stops the pawn and the king is ready to go this way. Bishop C8 attacking the knight. By the way, if king B5 here, knight E6 and you start attacking here. So that's the reason why bishop C8, knight E6. Taking here, Yaz has calculated that he'll actually win this endgame. So Magnus can't do that. He pushes G6. Okay, G7 is not coming because this is hanging. Bishop E6 will be met with king E6. Black is fine. King E7 played and now king B5. And now he plays F4. So the mistake that had happened here, king A6, is that instead of here playing king E7, he had to go F4. That would have been a drawn. But king E7 wasting time does not help because now after king A6, F3, Magnus simply takes the pawn and I think Yaz forgot that the bishop can come here to defend. He goes B5, but this is not good enough because you go G7. A very nice move, and this is what was missed, I believe. Knight G7, because he thought that A B5 and then F2 and the bishop can't come in time. But G7, Knight G7, now A B5, and now the bishop can come here and stop the pawn. Oof, what an endgame this is. Truly, and look at Magnus there. He knows he's won it. He knows that he's got the full point, and look at Yaz. He's so unhappy. He's tears in his eyes because he was so close to holding that game. And Magnus, of course, wouldn't want the kid to suffer, but that's how chess is. And that's how prodigies function. He's upset. Bishop h3, stopping the pawn. And now, you know, if Magnus had just one b pawn, it would have been a draw because the knight would have come in time. But he has two pawns, and you get the knight for one pawn, and for the other pawn then goes through. Knight e6 played. Magnus pushes forward b6. It's heart-wrenching to see Yaz suffer like that on the board, but well, it's also part of the game that end games are super tough. You know, the stronger player often grinds out the weaker player in end games, and that's just something that is the situation right now for Yaz. He's 14 years old and he held Magnus neck to neck until move 50, and then he made a blunder somewhere. So he's plenty of reasons to be happy about, and he'll improve. He'll improve very soon. King a8 with the idea of b8 queen, and then the b pawn just moves ahead. If king d6, b5 first is a nice move. And Yaz resigns here. Magnus wins it, and you can see the relief on Magnus's face. Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus, well, you know, he could think that he fought well against Magnus and lost, but hardly so. He just feels that he should have held it. And Magnus, well, he got the tie breaks with Arjun and he managed to win the playoffs. And now in the playoffs, he won and became the champion of this tournament. So super important win for Magnus. So this is the critical moment. In this position, Magnus pushes his pawn to g6. Now, the threat, of course, is to go this way. But if you think about it, if you go directly king b5, then you're losing the g5 pawn. So g6 is played, and now f4 would be on time. Because think about it, if you played king b5 now, I go f3, king a6, f2, there is just no way to stop this pawn. It's going to f1. So this one important tempo is super critical. Let's say f4, if bishop b7, it's still quite complicated, but a line could be a5, takes, takes, king b5, king e7, king takes a5, knight to c5, bishop is hanging, so you save it. And now knight takes a4, king a4, king f6, bishop tries to stop, f3, and a draw ensues. So you had to be very careful. The point is, somehow Yaz with 1 minute 28 seconds falters with king e7, and he thinks like, okay, what I can do is I'll go king f6 next. I'll also push my pawn. There's nothing much that can happen. If you go king d5, I have check and I win. I think he calculated that after king b5, there is f4, king a6, f3, and king takes a7. I also think Yaz saw this incredible resource b5. Because if you play f2, then after bishop a6, white is just winning. But b5 was seen by him, because if you take now f2, suddenly the bishop a6 move does not block the pawn. But the point here is, after g7, knight takes g7 in such a position, which is what, I mean, the point was g7 is the move that Magnus has. And the idea is, imagine if you try to stop this pawn, I have bishop takes e6 with a check. That's one problem. And f2, I simply make a queen. So you have to take, and now the pawn takes, because at this moment I have gotten this move now, bishop h3, and Magnus won this game. So a very interesting endgame with these little nuances, typical of how Magnus grinds out his win.